The Factories Act 1948. Factories Act 1948 is one of the major central acts aimed to regulate the working conditions in the factories. It lays down all essential provisions relating to proper working conditions, working hours, holidays, overtime, employment of children, women and young person, safety, health and welfare of the workers employed in a factory. The main objective of the Act is not only to ensure adequate safety measure, but also to promote health and welfare of the workers employed in a factory, as well to prevent haphazard growth of factories through the provisions relating to approval of plans before creation of a factory. This Act has been enacted primarily with the object of protecting workers employed in factories against industrial and occupational hazards. To ensure that the objectives are met, it imposes certain obligations on the owner or occupier to protect the workers and secure them employment in conditions which are likely for their health and safety. This Act was enacted in 1948 and came into force with effect from 1 April 1949. The Factories Act 1948 is applicable to whole of India. This Act contains 120 sections and 3 schedules. Now we shall look into some of the definitions under this Act. Definition 1. Adult. Who is known as adult? Adult is a person who has completed his 18 years of age. Definition 2. Adolescent. Who is adolescent? Adolescent is a person who has completed his 15th year of age, but has not completed his 18th year. Definition 3. Child. Who is child? Child refers to a person who has not completed his 15th year of age, in other words, person under 15 years of age. Definition 4. Hazardous process. We all know the meaning of hazard. It is nothing but a situation that poses a level of threat to life, health or property. Here hazardous means any industrial process or activity which causes major impact on health of persons who are engaged or connected to the activity, or it may affect even environment, causing pollution. So it is necessary that special care is to be taken on raw materials used, intermediate or finished products, byproducts, waste or effluents. Definition 5. Young person. Young person is a person who is either a child or an adolescent. Definition 6. Manufacturing process. It means any process of making, altering, repairing, ornamenting, finishing, packing, oiling, washing, cleaning, breaking up, demolishing, treating or adapting of any substance with a view to its use, sale, transport, delivery or disposal, pumping oil, water, sewage or any other substance, or generating, transforming or transmitting power, composing types for printing, printing by letterpress, lithography, photogravure or other similar process, or bookbinding, constructing, reconstructing, repairing, refitting, finishing or breaking up ships or vessels. Definition 7. Factory. This is one of the important definitions in this Act. Any activity having 10 or more workers are or were working on any day of the preceding 12 months, and manufacturing processes being carried out with the aid of power. In case manufacturing process is being carried on without the aid of power, at least 20 or more workers are or were working on any day during the previous 12 months can be termed as factory. The term factory does not include mines, or a mobile unit belonging to the armed forces of the Union, a railway running shed or a hotel, restaurant or eating place. Definition 8. Occupier. Who is known as occupier of a factory? Occupier is the person who has ultimate control over the affairs of the factory. In the case of a firm or other association of individuals, any one of the individual partners or members can be considered as occupier. In the case of a company, any one of the directors can be considered as occupier. In the case of a factory owned or controlled by the central government or any state government, or any local authority, person appointed to manage the affairs of the factory by the respective authority can be considered as occupier. In the case of a ship which is being repaired, or on which maintenance work is being carried out, in a dry dock which is available for hire, the owner of the dock shall be deemed to be the occupier for the purposes of any matter. Key points to remember: the state government on its own or on application made by an occupier has power to direct that different departments or branches of a factory may be treated as separate factories, or in a similar manner. Two or more factories of the occupier may be treated as a single factory. A written notice to be provided to Chief Inspector at least 15 days before occupying or using any premises as a factory. Every inspector appointed by the state government has power to enter any place, make examination of premises, inquire into any accident or dangerous occurrence. Inspector also has powers to seize or take copies of any register or record. The manager of every factory is required to maintain a register of adult workers, which should be available to the inspector at all times during working hours. Every district magistrate is also inspector of his district. As and when a new manager is appointed, the occupier is required to send written notice to the inspector within 7 days from the date on which such person takes over charge. Every occupier is required to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of all the workers while they are at the work in the factory. If in any factory, dangerous incident takes place, the manager of the factory is required to send notice to concerned authorities, irrespective of bodily injury or disability caused or not. In every factory where 1,000 or more workers are employed, or where the state government feels that the manufacturing process or operations used involves any risk of body injury, poisoning, disease, or any other hazard to health, the occupier has to appoint safety officers relating to employees. In factories having more than 250 workers, a canteen should be maintained by the occupier. In factories having more than 30 women workers, a suitable room is required to be maintained by the occupier for the use of the children under the age of 6 years of such women. In factories where 500 or more workers are ordinarily employed, such number of welfare officers are required to be appointed as prescribed. In factories where more than 150 workers are ordinarily employed, restrooms and a suitable canteen with provision for drinking water is required to be provided by the occupier. In factories where more than 500 workers are ordinarily employed, an ambulance room with proper medical facilities under the charge of medical and nursing staff to be maintained by occupier. A child who has completed 14 years of age or an adolescent is allowed to work in a factory only when the manager of the factory is having the certificate of fitness granted to such child or adolescent worker. No child can be employed or permitted to work in a factory for more than 4.5 hours during any day or night. Every child worker who has worked at least 240 days in a calendar year in a factory is allowed to take 1 day leave for every 15 days of work performed during the previous calendar year. Every adult worker who has worked at least 240 days in a calendar year in a factory is allowed to take 1 day leave for every 20 days of work performed during the previous calendar year. No adult worker can be allowed or required to work more than 48 hours in a week. No adult worker can be allowed or required to work more than 9 hours in a day. Every worker has right to obtain information from the occupier relating to workers' health and safety at work. Every worker has right to represent to the inspector directly or through his representative in the matter of inadequate provision for protection of his health or safety in the factory. If any workers violates any provision of Factories Act or any rules made, will be punishable with fine which may extend to 500 rupees. Using or allowing using false certificate of fitness is punishable with imprisonment for a term which may extend to 2 months, or with fine which may extend to 1,000 rupee, or with both.